Welcome back to episode 23 of the Grit Code Podcast, a place where we decode the steps to success on and off the field. I'm 11-year NFL veteran, three-time Pro Bowler Donte Whitner, alongside Bay Area TV and radio analyst Rod Brooks, and there's a lot of big news this week. Anything big going on in Santa Clara this weekend?
Nah, nothing I know. Oh, you know what? I heard they might play a football game down at Levi's, but I ain't been too plugged in on none of that.
Oh, it's going to be a devastating fucking situation if the Seattle Seahawks win that motherfucker on the 49ers turf, man. That's insult to injury there. But I want to get right into it. There's a lot of big news with the 49ers. And the big thing this offseason, you knew that Robert Saleh was going to get a head coaching gig. And you knew that Kyle Shanahan was going to have to replace his defensive coordinator. They hired Raheem Morris. Did they get it right?
Well, I mean, I think if you just take the situation in total, yeah, they got it right. Nothing against Gus Bradley, but if you're comparing everybody, Raheem Morris and Gus Bradley. Me personally, I'm taking Raheem Morris. Jim Schwartz, to me, that just didn't seem like it was really going to go anywhere because he's under contract with the Browns. And as far as Brian Flores, we talked last week. We were both in agreement that that'd be the guy that we both would like. Minnesota just gave him $6 million. So clearly they weren't inclined to let him go. All things being equal, with Raheem Morris having the pedigree, with him having the relationship he does with Kyle Shanahan, maybe give you some intel on what they're doing with the Rams from Morris's time with Sean McVay over the last few years before he got the Atlanta job. I'm cool with it, bro, until further notice.
And that's my problem. I'm not cool with people just being cool with it because you have to be data driven. And my business partner told me this when I retired from the NFL ride. He said, Whitner, the one thing that you might struggle with after football is that people achieve success without merit. And it's a lot of nepotism and it's a lot of friendship based relationships that get you put into position.
Sure.
Which is why I have an issue with this. And I truly believe that the 49ers will be looking for their next defensive coordinator, the 6th or 7th in 7 years, mainly because they hired based on friendship and they went with the safe bet here. And hold on, I'm not just saying it. I'm data driven now, baby. Now let's go back to 2011 to 2014 with Vic Fangio and Ed Donatell as a defensive back coach in San Francisco.
Something you know about. Okay.
2011, we had the 5th best pass defense. We had the top 5 defense in the league. In 2012, we had the 4th. In 2013, the 7th. 2014, the 5th. I bring up that data to show that when Vic Fangio moved on from the San Francisco 49ers and interviewed for the defensive coordinator job at Washington, guess who was on the coaching staff then in Washington? Raheem Morris. And guess what the Washington Redskins wanted Vic Fangio to do? Get rid of his good buddy, Ed Donatell, and hire Raheem Morris onto the staff. Fast track to success, basically. Nepotism. Put into position. Okay, now you say he might have earned it, Whitner. He might have earned it. Okay, let's go back to his track record as a defensive back coach in Washington during 2011 to 2014. 30th ranked defense, pass defense, 26th, 28th, 24th. What in the fuck after that production would merit him to jump onto Vic Fangio's staff? Anything?
No.
Nothing. Right? Okay, so Vic Fangio turns it down. He goes to Chicago. Meanwhile, Brandon Staley is at a small school in Ohio near where I'm from, John Carroll. He's a Vic Fangio disciple from afar. He's looking at all the interviews. He's reading everything about him. He's implicating and implementing Vic Fangio's defense and John Carroll. So he's there for 3 years. Eventually, Vic Fangio brings him onto his staff in Chicago. Meanwhile, Raheem Morris leaves Washington because they overlooked him for Joe Barry and made him the defensive coordinator, and he goes and get nepotized again in Atlanta with his college coach, Dan Quinn.
Mm.
And he becomes the pass defense coordinator. Do you want to understand what their statistics were that year?
I'm guessing not good.
250 plus yards given up, 19th ranked. Is that earned? Okay. Then he switches over to the offensive side of the ball and coaches receivers under Kyle Shanahan. Then Dan Quinn gets fired and you assume the role of interim head coach and defensive coordinator, and you were bottom ranked in defense again that year, like 29th or something. Okay, Brandon Staley goes to Chicago, and he's an intricate part of Vic Fangio's trajectory from number 10 the first year, top 10 in defense, to number 1. So then he goes to Denver with Vic Fangio. So he knows the match system. He knows the disguise, the too high safety, what you're trying to do. He's a disciple of Vic Fangio. They have a top defense in Denver. What happens? Brandon Staley becomes the defensive coordinator for the LA Rams with one of the good old boys, McVay. Because remember, he was with Raheem Morris and Kyle Shanahan in those early days in Washington.
Right.
So now Brandon Staley goes out and he has a number 1 defense across the board in 2020. 2021 comes after Raheem Morris is in Atlanta and underperforming and on the offensive side of the ball and switching back and forth. McVay makes a call and gives him the responsibility of taking on Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in the number 1 defense in 2021.
Okay.
None of it was earned. None of it was merit. It was strictly friendship. Hold on, Rod.
Okay.
It gets better.
It
gets better.
All right.
Now you assume the number 1 defense in the league, and what was your performance in 2022, 2023? Now you're the 15th, 16th, 17th ranked defense in the league with the same players. And the only reason you win the Super Bowl is because you had an all-world offense that year. Matthew Stafford threw 41 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Cooper Kupp damn near had 2,000 yards receiving and 16 touchdowns. That was an offense-led team by a defense that was underperforming based on the architect of that Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley system. So it was always just given to him. So then you go to Atlanta. Let's talk about the stats in Atlanta. 23rd in points in 2024, 23rd in yards, 22nd in pass defense, 31st in sacks. 2025, 19th in points, 15th in total yards. How does this make the San Francisco 49ers better? It doesn't. And after this year, we have to start looking at Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and starting to see, are you making the proper decisions to actually win a Super Bowl? I hate this pick. And if you want the Vic Fangio system so bad, how about you go hire somebody from the Philadelphia Eagles that's on Vic Fangio's system, that's a disciple that understands the intricacies of his defense? Why keep keeping it safe and keep hiring friends? I have a major issue with it.
Okay. And all of those points, obviously, are good points and extraordinarily well-researched points. But here's my counter to that as an observer, okay? As far as the friendship and the connection thing goes,
That's the only reason he was hired.
well, see that's where I disagree. Now,
He
again,
hasn't been the architect of any top 10 defense system anywhere he's been. Secondary, nowhere. It's unwarranted.
okay, that's fine. But to go to your point of why not just get somebody off of Vic Fangio's staff, that Philadelphia staff, A, we don't know if anybody there is available, and B, you're still not talking about the architect of the system. You're talking about a disciple of the system.
That's what Brandon Staley was.
So you're
When
still
Brandon Staley came from Denver and from Chicago with Vic Fangio, He wasn't the architect. He assumed the information and he
Mhm.
applied it with his guys and with certain standards.
Right,
That's
but
why they had the number one defense across the board.
you're still but we haven't even talked about the players as well. But you're still, in this essence, talking about a derivative, and the derivative is never going to be as good as the original. So again, I think there's a lot of assumption here. I, as I said earlier, when looking at the situation in total, Raheem Morris, in my estimation, is the best that they could do
But
for
why? That's
for.
only the people that you know. How do
I
you know that somebody on Vic Fangio's system hasn't been there for 6, 7 years and get the opportunity to be one of the guys that it's like the NFL draft. You get the top 10, 20 list. How many of those guys turn out to be busts? How many guys turn into Brock Purdy? You didn't get the publicity, you didn't get the articles, you didn't get
Sure.
the people talking about you, but you turn out to be that guy.
But
That
it's
can
also
possibly happen.
it's also
It's too much. It's
situational.
like
If
it's
Brock
too
Purdy
much
goes somewhere
recycling,
else, he's
right?
not as good.
I'm just saying the data.
I
The
I
data shows that he's never been the architect of anything dominant. You
okay,
started with Gus Bradley, who is a Robert Saleh, who architect the Legion of Boom. You assume that defensive role, and then you try to jump ship and get onto Vic Fangio's staff early in Washington. And now you're coming back, jumping onto what Brandon Staley did in LA in 2021. That was his system. That's the Vic Fangio system. So who are you? And then when we look at your track record and the data, it doesn't show that you are top tier at your position. When DeMeco Ryans became the 49ers defensive coordinator, did he have a top 5 defense?
yes,
Absolutely. Robert Saleh, before he left, did he have a top 5 defense?
the first time,
Yes.
yes.
That's
Now,
your track record for
who
success.
who's
When
on
you
that
look at
but who's
Raheem
on
Morris,
that
there's
defense
no
though? We
track
haven't even
record for
talked about
success,
players.
right?
At
There's no
some
track record.
at some point in time, you have to marry the data with the situations. We haven't even talked about players. What players were on those defenses? And D, you know as well as
When he
anybody, the
assumed,
talent
all
you
right, I
have.
got it, I got it. When Brandon Staley was the defensive coordinator in 2020, he had Leonard Floyd, he had Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey,
That's
Demarius Williams.
pretty damn good.
Okay. When Raheem Morris assumed that same defensive coordinator role 1 year later, guess who the same players were? Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Demarius Williams, Jalen Ramsey. And do you know how the stats looked? The data shows they were significantly worse in every statistical category across the board. What does that tell me? That's data. That's players, that's data. It tells me that you're just passing out coaching jobs to your friends, and there's zero merit behind it. And people say, "Oh, Winter, don't tear another black man down." That motherfucker gonna get paid regardless of what I say. And what I'm telling you is the track record shows who you are as a coach. So that's all I'm saying about the
Right.
guy.
Okay.
So I think that in the grand scheme of things, the 49ers really want to win games. But until Kyle Shanahan starts to hire based on merit, you're not going to do it. You're not going to win the Super Bowl.
So out of all of the that we know, available candidates, just to use that word. Okay. So
Mhm.
Bradley, Schwartz, even though he didn't seem as he was available because he's under contract. Brian Flores, again, didn't seem to be available because clearly the Minnesota Vikings wanted him. They paid him $6 million. Raheem Morris. Out of all of those guys, who, in your mind, should Kyle Shanahan have gone with?
I would think outside the box. And if I'm so infatuated by the Vic Fangio system, because McVay is infatuated by the system behind hiring Brandon Staley to go there and have a number one defense. That's your boy. Um, um, Kyle Shanahan is infatuated because he actually tried to hire Vic Fangio on multiple occasions. He actually brought Brandon Staley onto the coaching staff to try to figure out the match system and how they can integrate some of that into San Francisco's defense. And then now you're going back to Raheem Morris, who had his grandest success implementing a Vic Fangio system. You go to where the Vic Fangio disciples are. You've been wrong too often. If you want that system, you understand how difficult that system is to execute against, how difficult it is for your quarterback. You go and you give one of those guys a chance. You don't hire the Nick Sorenstens and all of the Wilks and all of that bullshit. You're recycling coaches that think the same. Nobody's reinventing the wheel, but you have some young guys that are coming up that are modernizing the way that you play defense and offense, and it's leading to success. That's all I'm saying. And on that Vic Fangio staff, I know Vic Fangio. I know his standard. I know his knowledge. And if you assume that knowledge, I promise you, if you're a leader of men, you can go out and have success on a football field. I promise you, you can. Because nobody's teaching it at that level, which is why Brandon Staley had the success that he had instantly, Rod. I haven't seen it from Raheem Morris. It's about opportunity, which is like the head coaching, right? The black head coaches not getting the Rooney rule and everything. How you feel about that?
Well, I mean, clearly there's something, and that's been wrong with the Rooney rule, and something that has been wrong in the NFL for far too long in terms of black coaches not getting the opportunities. But before we get to that, because that's a very heavy subject that deserves to be talked about on its own, I just one last thing with this Raheem Morris and the Kyle Shanahan connection, and this league being full of being a relationship based business. Who you know is just as important, maybe sometimes too important, more so than what you know. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you've lost coordinator after coordinator, or you have had less than great success with coordinator after coordinator, it's only human nature for you to go to someone that you know, that you're familiar with, and you have an idea. You're going to give him the defense. It's going to be set it and forget it, and you're going to have him for a while. Understanding that branching out and doing something new is a very desirous thing with the Niners in terms of losing coordinator after coordinator or having problems with it. But if you're an established coach, that's not necessarily something that you want to get into right now. It could be the wrong decision.
He did it with
It could be, and it didn't work. And it could be the right decision. But if you have been recently burned with Sorensen and Wilks, in essence being one and done, and you brought Robert Saleh back and it was one and done, maybe that was expected, maybe that was unexpected. I think one could reasonably see a connection between Raheem Morris and Kyle Shanahan being something that is desirous to bring into the fold, and you can have him for possibly a few years to where you don't have to worry about this very important part.
What about his
team.
track record shows that you don't have to worry? Everywhere he's been, they've underperformed and been bottom fourth in the NFL in all defensive categories.
Well, there is
you definitely have to worry.
There is an expectation that, yes, the defense cannot get worse, and there is an expectation that it should be better. There is no doubt about that. But going back to my original point, so give the job to Gus Bradley. You look at the metrics for Gus Bradley, and
when you look at Gus Bradley track record, he developed a Legion of Boom.
I understand that, but you look at Gus Bradley. But if we're going to talk about the data, you look at Gus Bradley's defenses. They've been really nothing to write home about.
The Raiders in Indianapolis were like a downturn because that type of defense is starting to be a little bit like archived. But he has a track record of actually doing it.
But what about the talent?
When Raheem Morris' track record pops up, he doesn't have a track record of actually doing it at any time in his career. Gus Bradley does. He was the architect of those things. Raheem Morris hasn't. So we're really just talking facts here. That's what I like to talk. I like to talk the data. And then when it happens, you'll be like, oh, shit, Whitner, you were right. You understand? And then one of those guys from Philadelphia go on to be a defensive coordinator next year and have a top 5 defense. And then we'll have to revisit this subject. But, all right, he is the defensive coordinator. He has assumed Brandon Staley and Vic Fangio's system. And there's a lot of talk about transitioning from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense.
Mm.
Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's
I,
realistic?
I
And
don't think.
what would have to happen if they do that?
I think it would be ridiculous with the talent that they have to go to a 3-4 defense. They just, in my estimation, don't have the guys to do that. So I will assume part of this process to get Raheem Morris into the mix was, we have these guys. Can you work with them within the framework of running a 4-3 defense? Now, you can bring your own special sauce to it. We can run 5-man defenses. We can walk linebackers down. Maybe we do some things differently on the back end. Obviously, it's going to be a different situation, assuming that Bosa is healthy and Warner is healthy and they get back to playing at the level they were playing at before they got hurt. But this idea that Morris has to come in and change, when healthy, a successful 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense would be, in my mind, asinine, be ridiculous.
Well, if the 49ers do transition to a 3-4 defense, they're going to have to trade Nick Bosa.
Which they're not going to do.
There's no way that Nick Bosa can play in a 3-4 defense.
Of course not.
And the basis of a 3-4 defense is so that you can have balance across the board. You have 5 men up front, 2 backers, 2 safeties that can disguise in a Vic Fangio system. And that always gives you an advantage over the quarterbacks because you don't know who's rotating down and who's rushing.
Right.
And if you keep Nick Bosa in a 3-4 system where he's always the rusher, that's a telltale sign to the offense. And then with that position, you need a guy that can rush, that can drop in coverage, that can communicate across the board, that can take running backs on wheel routes and vertical routes.
Playing that
And
hook
that's just
defender
totally against what you want to do on the defense side of the ball. So if they transition to a 3-4 defense, they have to trade Nick Bosa.
I don't even think that's an issue. There's no way they're going to do that.
But what
There's no way
system
they're
do
gonna
you
trade
think
Nick
that
Bosa.
he's actually going to run? Do you think he's going to run the Gus Bradley system, 4-man rush, Robert Saleh, and keep what they've been doing? It doesn't work.
I think, as I mentioned, I think we're going to see more 5-man fronts. I think we're going to see
5-man front is really a 3-4.
comparatively speaking. But I'm not saying they're going to run that all the time. I think you're just going to see more of it to see if you could take advantage of that. I think you're also going to see more blitzing. I think all of this is predicated on you having a healthy Bosa and Warner, and not necessarily keeping things the same, but definitely using their talents and what they do in terms of how they fit in the defense.
I agree with that. But I still think that the personnel issues it's hard because see, this is why coaches like Vic Fangio just don't like to just assume guys onto their staff. Is because you have so many different things that you've been taught. What is your true identity?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they say? What's the quote behind it? If you're a master of everything, or something,
A jack of all trades, master of
jack
none.
of all trades, master of everything, shit. It's the truth when it comes to coaching as well. You have to master one side of the football. You have to master certain things. So let's go to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch real quick.
Okay.
If you're getting close every year, they've missed on a lot of draft picks. The contracts are coming up to be renewed. Do you think there's a lot of confidence that they'll get this done, or should there be pressure from ownership to really get over the hump before they satisfy all these?
Well, I think there's always pressure, real spoken pressure or implied pressure to get it done. If you're asking if those guys should be given contract extensions, should be kept around, I'm saying absolutely, especially in the case of Kyle Shanahan. Um, I understand that people think he has his blind spots. I understand that people think that that he could be better in certain areas, but I look at it from a standpoint of, if he were to no longer be there, how long would Kyle Shanahan be out of a job? Be a very short amount of time. Now, if we want to have a discussion about drafting, recent drafts for the Niners, if we want to have a discussion about John Lynch, okay, maybe that's a different story. But if we're talking about them as a package deal, there's nothing in my mind that says that unless there is a massive regression this year and this upcoming season and next year to where you start looking for a new head coach GM tandem, because what the Niners have and what they have had for a while is something that many teams across the NFL want, that continuity between coach and GM that for the most part has been very, very successful, even though they've missed on 2 Super Bowls.
Well, they lucked up a few times as well, especially in the draft. And they terribly drafted in the first round. And they've made terrible decisions when it's come to draft picks, especially for Trey Lance and all of those different guys. So Brock
Yeah,
Purdy,
they made that decision out of haste and desperation because they thought they saw where the world was going as far as quarterbacks were concerned. In essence, a Patrick Mahomes archetype, and they tried to find themselves their own Patrick Mahomes, and they got over their skis and they got, if you will. And you can't make a move out of desperation, and
which
that's
is
what they were
why I
doing.
think that somebody else need to be making the draft picks for the San Francisco 49ers. And we all data driven. And when you look at the track record, they haven't been doing a good job of nailing those guys that are supposed to be cornerstones on your team. Those guys that don't make as much as those veteran guys that can perform up to par or top tier.
Yeah.
That's where it's really getting a little bit of friction.
Those guys
Specifically with
make up
numbers.
the core, almost the guts of
Yes.
your team, and missing on those draft picks. And I'm thinking specifically the year, I guess it was 2023, where you look at the Niner draft picks. If I have the year right, you just go, but what year was Jake Moody drafted? Because he was he was the main guy. Was that
Yeah, I
2023?
screamed on KMB already. I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. That's the year where you look at it and you go, they failed miserably. So you combine 2023 and you combine the 3 first rounders for Trey Lance. It's not a good look, and that's probably why the chickens have finally come home to roost in that regard, because you missed on those draft picks and you gave up those 3 firsts for Trey.
Yeah, and it starts to show like some incompetence in that area. And these are the things that drastically limit your ability to win these type of games and win championships. When you look at the 49ers in free agency this year, I'm starting to hear that Drake Greenlaw might be available.
To come bring him
They're
back?
saying that he only played about 50 something percent of the snaps last year. He's a cap casualty. He'll save them $6 million in cap. If he's released, should that be one of the priorities? And how do you feel about Rashid Shaheed, the returner,
Oh,
the wide
yeah.
receiver,
Yeah.
27 years old, from
100
Seattle joining the band?
anything for the Niners to get faster and more dynamic. Absolutely. Greenlaw, I don't know about that. And God bless Dre Greenlaw, but he didn't start the year healthy. So to me, that's an issue. How much longer does he have to play at a high level and play healthy at a high level? But Shaheed or anybody that brings some team speed to the Niners in all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, sign me up for that.
I think the guy
100%.
that they need to go ahead and revisit and rekindle with is Debo Samuel. I would love to see Debo Samuel
Ah.
return on a 1 to 2 year deal. That's the missing ingredient. I don't care what nobody say.
Does he
Argue.
make them faster?
He makes them tougher. And a lot of times when you look at the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams, the 49ers are getting out tough.
But the problem with the toughness battle against the Rams and the Seahawks, I don't think it has anything to do with wide receiver. I think it has to do with the interior offensive and defensive lines.
Oh, yeah, we
So if
talked
you
about that. We
so
know
if you want to get tougher to beat those 2 teams, that's where you get tougher. To get back to the Debo thing, I think
man, go and get Debo
it tickles
Samuel.
the nostalgia fancy, but that don't make you faster.
Debo in the
That's their
lab right
problem
now.
with the skill position. They're
Debo in the
not
lab.
fast
He
enough.
never been the fastest, but he always been the toughest and the grittiest. You add him back to the offensive side of the football. You add Shaheed, which gives you a double direction and guys that can get it done in the open field. You go and get you a tight end, Kyle Pitts, because you're going to have to replace George Kittle, and then Kyle Pitts and a Shanahan system
I see
will
now
be all world.
yeah.
I'm telling you right now. And then you go and get you AJ Brown. We talked about it, a few episodes ago. These are the guys that they need on that offensive side of the ball. But I do agree that they really shouldn't revisit the Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw is showing that he's at that point in his career where it's an inflection point.
Yeah.
He's dealing with so many different injuries. You're starting to get older. Your impact is going to start to diminish.
Yeah.
I want to go over to the ownership side. There were some comments made by Eddie DeBartolo Jr. about he wouldn't go 31 years without a championship. Would you like to see Eddie DeBartolo Jr. as a piece of the 49ers organization moving forward? And what's the difference between those teams that he had that won championships and the current day 49ers?
Well, let me start with the latter. Salary cap. Eddie DeBartolo, one of the greatest owners, not just in the NFL, but in the history of North American sports. And what made Eddie DeBartolo great is because he had two things. He had an overwhelming desire to win, or three things. He had an overwhelming desire to win. He had people in place that could implement the vision that led to winning, satisfying Eddie DeBartolo's overwhelming desire to win. And he had the wallet that could finance his overwhelming desire to win, and a wallet that would embolden Carmen Policy and John McVay and Bill Walsh to a certain extent to go out and get the players that could fulfill that vision and that overwhelming desire to win. When you don't have to worry about a salary cap, you can go and do that. It's a little bit, not a little bit, it's a lot different of a situation now. So could Eddie DeBartolo be successful in this hypothetical situation where he's still the owner and dealing in salary cap? Yes, without a doubt. But not to say it's easier, but clearly, back in the day when Eddie DeBartolo was spending money to get ass, as he once famously said, it's a whole lot because you're not stacking Hall of Fame quarterbacks on your roster. You're not stacking Hall of Fame nose guards on your roster. You're not stacking all of that talent on your roster that he was able to stack because he didn't have to deal with the salary cap and he didn't have to deal with free agency. It's a
But I
different
think
world now.
a lot of it was a lot more intrinsic value as well, because Eddie DeBartolo wasn't just an owner; he actually loved his players, and you can
Oh yeah,
tell when you watch those
Oh yeah,
post game tributes when they're walking
yeah.
in the locker room and he's kissing everybody on the cheek. I think that Eddie DeBartolo set the standard that's missing amongst a lot of professional team leagues right now,
Sure.
right? And he was really the emotional center of that 49ers dynasty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But here's the thing, though. Do you really want your owner? Because
Yes, I want him hanging out with the players.
no.
That's what he
I'm not
did.
saying that.
Eddie
But do you
DeBartolo hung
really
out with
want your
players.
owner to be the emotional center of the team? Because that could go. It's not necessarily going to be, right there even
But it's
keeled
always with a
all the
common
time.
goal of winning.
Yes.
Treating everybody first class.
Yes. Oh, yeah. But
Sparing no
these are
cost.
different scenarios, though. In terms you being the emotional leader and treating everyone to almost a diamond standard, I think, are two completely different things.
Well, I think that his passion level just propelled him to be that emotional center.
Yeah, and
When you
it propelled
actually
him to
want to
almost
win
fire
as an
Bill
owner,
Walsh a handful of times.
when you actually want to win as an owner and you actually get passionate about the players and their injuries and their successes, and you fire coaches because they underperform, you understand the game, there's a different type of emotional connection with the players. I saw a story about Jeff Fuller, the safety for the 49ers at the time, made a tackle, lost feeling in his right arm or his left arm for the entirety of his life, and how he set up an annuity for that guy for the rest of his life, so he and his family can be taken care of.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
That
thing,
has
no
nothing
doubt.
to do with like, that means that you actually emotionally and on a different type of level, like family, you care. And that might be the missing ingredient with the 49ers. Yeah, they love each other. Yeah, they say all the right things. Yeah, they draft all the safe guys. But I don't know if that ownership level is as emotionally connected to winning as Eddie DeBartolo was. And I
Well,
think that
I don't know if you're ever going, because everybody's different. You can aspire to have that mindset, that point of view, that emotional connection, but it's really up to the individual. I just I think you can try and do it,
you
but
can show it in free agency with the amount of money that you're willing to go out and pay guys that are top tier to come into San Francisco and help you win a Super Bowl. You can actually gauge and show data on that. How many free agents do you bring in that's actually going to be game changers, that's going to move the needle? How many guys do you all make all these excuses? Oh, we can develop here and we can do this. No, you can't. There's a difference in those top tier guys. You can go out and pay some guys, right? So I'm saying that you can tell the type of passion level, commitment, and dedication to winning a lot of times based on how many times you throw all the chips on the table.
so I mean, to try and parse this out, are you saying that Jed York and this current ownership group, they haven't spent the money to be
I
as
don't
good
think
as
they
they could
have.
be?
I
But
don't really. I think that there's certain
they
guys
paid
out
Bosa,
there.
they paid Trent, they paid, obviously they paid Purdy, they paid Kittle, they paid Ayuk, they paid Debo. Who haven't they paid? They didn't pay Ufunga. I guess
They
they didn't
didn't
pay
pay
Trey.
Greenlaw,
They didn't pay
but those
Trey
were the
Greenlaw, but
different. Those were the actual difference makers as well.
yeah, I mean, but Bosa's a
Those are the
different.
guys that you need. They're not the superstars, but they're the glue guys. So when you say, okay, we can develop at this position, or we can do this, or we can try to replicate it, they tried to do it with me,
Mm.
with Jimmy Ward. You tried to lowball me and not pay me, and then draft a guy that's smaller than me that you want to play the way that I play, and it never came to fruition. So
Yeah,
I've
but
seen it
is
firsthand,
that an
right?
ownership based decision, or is that
That's a ownership, that's a
a
GM
football?
base, that's a coaching staff. Man, everybody know who can rock and roll out there. And when you start to go and drafting guys in a similar mode and you try to replicate that
Yeah.
process, you really just bullshitting everybody.
But if we're talking ownership, if your football operations come to you and they say this is our plan, this is why we want to go in this direction, do you as the owner support us? As the owner, what do we say? Is that you hire people to make football decisions, let them make the football decisions, and you pay based on the football decisions made by the football people. So again, if we're just talking about ownership here, if your football ops people come to you with the decision, you as the owner putting them in charge, empowering them to make these decisions, you as the owner, if you're good and you trust the people that you've made to bring these football decisions to light, aren't you supposed to say, I trust you, do what you have set forth to do?
You do, but that's why I love Eddie DeBartolo, um, because he hired his first GM. It was Joe Thomas, and remember Joe Thomas made that trade for O.J. Simpson when
Yes.
his knee was all busted up. And he trusted his instinct. He trusted his gut. And you know what? He fired everybody and he started to get intentionally involved. And it led to their first Super Bowl when he took a chance on Bill Walsh. When everybody said he was too old, what are you doing? And then Bill Walsh came in and changed the entire program.
Yeah, but I think also we have to, bring to light the other people that help make that
There's some
decision.
people that just want to make money, and then there's some people that are true football enthusiasts.
Yes, yeah, without
And
a
there's
doubt,
some owners
without a
that just
doubt.
want to make money, and there's some owners that are true football enthusiasts.
But
And
to
you
talk
know,
about the current state of the Niners, do you think that, I mean, which is Jed York? Do you think that Jed York is just out there to make money, or do you think that Jed York is serious about winning? Because I
I
think he's
think
serious about winning. Now, that doesn't mean that all the decisions that he's made and the people he's empowered to make decisions on his behalf have made the right decisions. But
truthfully,
I,
you know what? When I look at it, I don't think any of the owners are really about winning. They're about that profit. They're going to say all the right things. They're going to protect the shield. But at the end of the day, I don't fully believe that any of the owners actually care about winning anymore. That's the difference between the
well,
DeBartolo era and this current era. It's
not
all a
winning
facade.
does not take money out of your pocket. So I do agree with you there that it is it's lucrative to be an owner of a football team, because you're never going to lose money. You're always going to make money based on how strong the league is and how strong the and how strong the product is. So if you are not 155,000% enthusiastic about winning, it's not necessarily going to affect your bottom line. So I do agree with you on
We had a long talk about these 49ers, man. I think we got a lot of good information.
that. For a
Hey,
team that's
hey,
not in the
listen.
Super Bowl.
Hey, we got a lot of fucking good information going. So I think it's time to go around the league with
Let's do it.
Shedeur Sanders into the Pro Bowl. And I have to just go in first on this. And
Yeah.
I totally disagree with it. There's no merit to it. Again, just like the Raheem Morris shit, I remember making my first Pro Bowl. The sense of pride and accomplishment that I felt from actually grinding, staying healthy, being consistent, making plays, winning games, and the sense of just pride and responsibility I felt. I felt like I accomplished something great because now you're not just the 1% that made it to the NFL, you're the 1% of the 1%. So I'm totally against it. I hear his dad talk about, oh, he deserved it. Bullshit. Go out there consistently, put that team on your back, throw a lot of touchdowns, more touchdowns than interceptions, earn your way into the game. And if I was Shedeur Sanders in that moment, I would have actually turned down the invitation.
You turned down the invitation like CJ Stroud did. Turned down the invitation
CJ Stroud turned it down with his performance.
like Justin Fields did.
Justin Fields turned it down with his performance. They
Right.
they
Right.
understood like I don't deserve to be there.
Right. But my point
How you
is,
gonna be at the players' ball and you ain't no player? Tell me, right? You don't deserve to go to the players' ball if you ain't no player.
but here's the deal, and you're right. Obviously you're right, and obviously your perspective is a unique one because you played the game and you were a Pro Bowler. But that Pro Bowl you made and that Pro Bowl game you played in, even though it wasn't that long ago, is vastly different than the Pro Bowl team and the Pro Bowl game that we have now in 2026 and beyond. It's still important from a recognition standpoint, but actually going and being part of the elite, as you mentioned, the 1% of the 1%, and playing in that game, even though it was an exhibition. Now it's a flag football game. Now they playing tug of war. Now it's not even
It's
you
not even
can't.
about what you're doing there. It's about earning your way
You're right.
into
You're
the
right.
doors.
But
Right? If you want to be
it's
the
a
best,
different situation now.
if you
It's
want
a
to be the
completely
best
different situation.
commentator, radio host in the world, are you going to have to put hours and hours
Of
and hours and
course.
hours
Of
and hours
course.
in to get to the level to where people are like, we like that guy, we want him on our show?
Of course.
He didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm
Oh,
saying
I
is
understand
that
that the
the
most
show
famous
is
guy on
different.
TikTok and Instagram and X and all that bullshit does not deserve to be in the NFL Pro Bowl where you perform
I,
amongst the elite football players and you win and you get the invitation.
I don't
It's
think
bullshit.
anybody, unless you have the surname Sanders, I don't think anybody believes that truly Shador Sanders is a Pro Bowler. What I'm saying is that because being a Pro Bowler is completely different now, it doesn't have it doesn't have the recognition that it once had. It's a completely different deal. So now you will have guys who are clearly not at the top of their respective positions, not one of the top players in the game, who will gladly accept the invite after that invite was turned down by several other people, because it's just like, well, it's just a part of the brand. I'm just going to see and be seen. What's the harm in going and being a Pro Bowler, even if I didn't play at a Pro Bowl level? It's just a completely different story. Now, to me, it's less about Shador Sanders, and it's more about how the Pro Bowl and being a Pro Bowler has been devalued, and how it's an insult to dudes who are actually at the top of their craft in today's football, and guys who were at the top of their craft in football back in the day, guys like you. You know what I mean? It's just, so I think it's the process, and I think it's how we look at the NBA All-Star game now. Yeah, it's still, there's a certain amount of value in being the All-Star, but you know that guys, they don't really care all that much. They'll take the
Yeah, but they
accolade,
earn
but
their way in there.
you're
Majority of the
you're
guys in the NBA All-Star game, you're like, man, yeah, I can see why he's an
I'm not
All-Star.
disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that how the perception of being an all-star, being a Pro Bowler, and playing it in those games, it's completely different now, and it's been devalued compared to what it once was not that long ago. So that's how you end up with this Shador Sanders situation. I don't even necessarily blame him, quite frankly. I don't blame
I
him
blame him for
at all.
accepting it though.
Oh, I mean,
As
yeah,
a real
you.
baller,
I
as a
think you can
real
blame him
baller,
for
you
maybe a
take that
lack
as
of
an insult.
awareness.
You politely decline,
I
and you go into the lab this off season,
I
and
don't
then you
disagree
get
with
with
that.
the old man that they just hired over there, Todd Monken, and you hope you can go make
I
some shit happen, which probably ain't gonna happen.
I
How do
don't
you feel
disagree.
about the Cleveland Browns hiring old man Todd Monken from Baltimore?
It's the Browns, dog. It's the Browns, man. It's
What
the
was the
Browns.
reason he got this opportunity?
The Browns be Browning
The good old
always.
boys win again. The good old boys win again. When I saw that move, right, I said, if this motherfucker didn't have Lamar Jackson, he would be the worst offense in the National Football League. So then you give him a head coaching job to coach Shador Sanders in Cleveland and think that this is just going to magically elevate you into the playoffs into a winning situation. A lot of these coaching moves are getting just so obvious because there are so many other guys that deserve opportunities. How did a guy like Todd Monken get a head coaching job in the NFL?
Relationships. Relationships. His time with John Harbaugh. Um, his time at what? The University of Georgia, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, not saying it's right, but it's what we've been talking about, and it's what we've seen. The NFL is a relationship business. It's not a total meritocracy as people think that it is, it should be, or what they desire it to be. It's who you know and what they know about you.
So that's what's going on with the coaching nepotism, right?
Yeah.
It's Kubiaks and all of these guys that have father figures that were in the coaching world, and then they give their son an opportunity as a GA. But I think something that we're missing here is there's a lot of players with experience, with knowledge that can articulate, that deserve those opportunities as well. And if you put them in those similar situations, those similar roles with infrastructure, and they can use what their natural competitive advantage would be over a lot of these guys, which is I actually fucking played the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of former players that can be top head coaches, not only in the National Football League,
Yeah. Right.
but in college football.
Yeah,
How do you feel about that?
you don't need a Rooney Rule. What you need is almost a pipeline from playing to coaching. There, if the NFL was serious, and we know they're not, they would have an infrastructure in place that what let me
They
start.
always put fake infrastructures in place.
Well,
They
that,
had
that
that. John
that
Goldson and those guys were participating in
right.
that fake coaching program where nobody gets elevated.
Well, but see, this is where I wanted to start, and I should have started, is that there has to be an appreciation of your former players and their knowledge and what they can contribute to the game going forward. And there has to be a respect of former players and their knowledge of the game and their love of the game that can be used and channeled into something that brings more former players in and brings more diversity into the coaching ranks. I think the big issue is that there's not nearly enough respect for people like you, former players. Not saying that you want to go into coaching, because maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. But using you as an example, former players who know the game, who love the game, and who still want to be involved in the game and want to coach in the game, there has to be a respect of those players and their minds and their abilities to think the game and coach the game just as much as you were respecting their physical ability to play the game. Because, and you know this, once they use up your physical ability, they don't think you're worth anything. And to me, that's the big issue. They have to respect your mental ability and your ability to coach and think the game. If you have that mindset from owners, from GMs, from executives in the league, I'm not saying it will solve all the problems, but I think it will go in the right direction of getting more people of color who played the game actually in the coaching, because there's a respect for their intelligence, their intellect, and their ability to pass that knowledge forward.
And a lot of the guys don't get the opportunities because the organizations don't believe that they're safe enough. Raheem, um, um, what's his name?
Morris.
Raheem Morris. He's a really safe guy. He's a safe African American. He's going to say all the right things. Energetically, he's going to be all the same way all the time, which is why a lot of the former players get blackballed from this coaching system. That's what I'm seeing. And when I talk about blackballed, I mean like the powers that be select the guys who they feel like are safe, who speak a certain way, who look a certain way, who dress a certain way, who come off energetically a certain way, and give them the opportunities. And it's like 0.01% of guys. And that's something that really has to change, because a lot of these, you know, ex-coach kids that get hired, they're just like nerds that never could play sports. It was like, oh, I'm going to put my son on and I'm going to make him one of the top coaches.
Come on,
They're
dog.
just like nerds with
Come on.
zero athletic ability in their bodies, most of them. So when we're doing this whole nepotism thing, I see it. Yeah, like they always been jealous. They always been jealous that we had the hottest girls, the hottest car,
Come
could
on,
run
man.
faster, jump
Come on, dog.
higher. You know, might make love better.
Come
Like
on, man.
James Brown said, might make love better. They always been jealous.
Come
I'm
on.
telling you. So when they got their chance and players get out of the league, they want to teach you a lesson. No, we're not letting you into this league right here. Even though you might be a great candidate
Mm.
and you might turn out to be a great coach, a lot of those things still linger on,
Well,
Rob.
that goes back to what I was saying before. There has to be a respect of the intellect and the intelligence of your former players that makes a person in a position of power, a owner, executive, what have you, it makes them desirous to keep that intelligence and that intellect around to enhance your team.
Or sometimes they could feel threatened. Because I remember when I got to the Cleveland Browns and I used to question Coach Halfley and those guys about shit that they wanted us to do that made zero sense. They almost got threatened, almost like, oh shit, just take what we're teaching you and do it this way, right? So sometimes they get threatened. And if they assume you on their staff, you might outgrow them.
But again, it's instead of looking at it or taking it as a threat when someone asks you a question, as when they ask you why, instead of taking that as a threat, respect the curiosity and respect the intellect of the person that wants to know, hey, why are we doing this? So I can understand it better, so I can go play it better. And if you respect that person's curiosity and if you respect that person's intelligence, you're more than likely more willing to actually give that person an opportunity or have that person be a part of your coaching ranks, which, as we've seen and has been proven time and time again, is a very small and cloistered group. They don't let a lot of people in, and once you do get in, if you are
You better do what I tell you, boy.
if you
You
are
better do what I tell
if
you,
you are
boy.
desirous, they will keep you around.
So they say, you better do what I tell you, boy. You understand? That's how they treat you. Um, Vic Fangio. We talk a lot about Vic Fangio. There's been rumors that he's ready to retire. Does that close the door for the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward in any championship aspirations?
It's crazy to think that if you lose a coordinator as good as Vic Fangio, you're going to be better or you're not going to dip. So on the surface,
And
I
Vic
would,
got a girlfriend he want to go spend time with.
yo, come on, dog.
I'm telling you, he met her in San Francisco.
No.
And look, he like, man, we done won games. I'm getting older. He like, come on, daddy. We got to travel the world. You got all this money and you hanging out with all these sweaty boys all the time. So
Son.
Vic, like, you know what? Maybe I need to go pull a Bill Belichick and get up out of here with the
Yo.
young hottie. What you think I'm lying? I'm serious, right? That's how he feel. He's like, man, I'm tired of being up in this building, man, in these offices, man, with these niggas that
Bruh.
ain't listening, man.
Come on, man.
I'm
No. Yo,
telling you,
son,
bro.
come on.
That's how we feel, bro. I know Vic.
I think Vic's going to be back next
Vic
year.
want to go to Naked Beach, man. Not Nikki Beach.
No.
Naked Beach.
No, man.
I'm telling you, bro.
Come on.
Yeah, you do.
Yo, I'm not. I ain't co-signing. Nah, dog.
That's what he want. Vic done put a lot of work in over the years, man. His back hurt.
Come on.
I'm telling you, man.
What are we doing? No. He's going to be whacked with the Eagles next year. Stop, dog.
No, he ain't, man. He about to take a worldwide trip. Naked beaches for Vic Fangio. You won the Super Bowl. You mega paid. You made it. Come on, Vic.
He is a coaching lifer. He's going to be with the Eagles.
Damn, that's a rough situation, dog. I got another one around the league. JJ McCarthy was dissed by his wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. He was like, hey, if you had Sam Darnold this year, would you guys be in a Super Bowl? He's like, absolutely. I need somebody that can read the defense, can throw it where it's supposed to be, know the playbook. Was that like the most disrespectful thing you can say about your quarterback?
I don't know if it's disrespectful because of the amount
Very
of truth.
disrespectful.
Well, I mean, no, because of the amount of truth that's in it. Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, I don't know. Would they have been a better team with Sam Darnold at quarterback than JJ McCarthy? Absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, on the surface, is it disrespectful? Sure. But I think there's more truth than disrespect in the entire statement.
But a lot of times the people in the NFL don't tell the truth.
Well,
You can have
a lot of times in life, people don't tell the truth.
You can have CJ Stroud throw 4 picks in the first half, and they ask his teammates, and they're going to say, oh, man, we all just got his back. CJ, the franchise quarterback. No, the fuck y'all don't feel like that.
Well, first and foremost, why you got to bring up old stuff, dog? I was just starting to get over
I'm just saying, because they all lie. They all lie.
No, I get that.
Blatantly say that, he meant that.
No, there's no doubt that he meant it. But also, we know wide receivers, when you ask them a pointed question about would you be better at your job if someone was better at their job? Would you be a better wide receiver and would we be a better team if the quarterback was better? More than likely, you're gonna get a wide receiver to take off the filter and go, yeah or no, if the case may be.
Now, before we get out of here, I want to go around to the NFL coaching hires, and we want to give a dude or a dud.
All right.
I want to start with number 10, Mike LaFleur, Arizona Cardinals.
I'd say dud just because it's the Cardinals.
Dud just because of nepotism. 9,
Well, that too.
Joe Brady, Buffalo Bills.
Oh boy, man, you want to talk about some palace intrigue and just some crazy behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to say dud because to me the bigger problem with the Buffalo Bills are the players they're selecting, not necessarily the person who's coaching them.
I want to say dud because he stabbed Sean McDermott in the back. Dud.
In the back, dog, he stabbed him up in the fronts.
I know. He's alone. Number 8, Jeff
with the knife.
Hafley, Miami Dolphins. I actually played for Jeff Hafley as he was my DB coach in Cleveland.
I was just about to say, I don't know enough about him. Instinctually, I would say dud because, again, we're talking about the Miami Dolphins. And if you want to talk about ownership and how ownership is not necessarily doing right by the team, to me, the Dolphins are one of the prime examples of the worst offenders. I don't know enough about Hafley as a coach to make a value judgment on him. So I defer to you on that one.
Well, I'm going to say dud because you're in Miami. Everybody's lustful. You got too many strip clubs. Everybody's drunk.
Here we go again, man.
And another thing is, I don't think we're no longer friends. I text him and said, "Oh, congratulations, Half, on the job. You know I live in Miami. I can help you out." 0 response. He's a fucking dud.
Go pull up on him, dog.
I hope he get fired in 2 years.
No, come on.
It's number 7, Robert Saleh, Tennessee Titans.
I'm going to say dude. And here's why. Jeffrey Simmons to start, I like. Cam Ward, and no, he's still kind of an unmolded piece of clay, but what I've seen in college and a little bit in pros, I think there's something there. The Titans ownership is not the best, but I think Robert Saleh as a coach and the pieces that they have to start, I'm gonna say dude on that one.
I think I'm gonna go dud. Strictly because I don't think that Cam Ward gonna cut them little dusty dreads up off his head. And I don't know if you can live a clean lifestyle with them little dusty little things up there. And I don't need my franchise quarterback like that. So I'm gonna say dud. And I don't believe in Robert Saleh as a head coach. Yeah, defensive coordinator, but head coach, no. So I don't believe in that guy. What about Harbaugh?
So I'm gonna say dude.
Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta.
I think he's a good coach. I really do. And
I say dud. I think he's arrogant.
Well, I mean, they're all arrogant.
Sabotage Shador Sanders. And Atlanta is just another good old boys hire, a recycled coaching candidate. And I think that he'll be 7-10 at the best.
I think with his coaching talent, because I think he can coach, with what they have with Michael Penix and the talent because they do have some Bijan Robinson. They got some dudes on defense. I think it's going to work. I'm going to say dude.
Todd Monken in Cleveland. I'm giving him a dud. I'm a dud with him.
It's the Browns, dog. It's the Browns.
Yeah. We didn't even have to bring him up. Clint Kubiak, Las Vegas Raiders.
So they're more than likely going to take Mendoza at 1. You got Genty. If they fix that offensive line, and that's a big if, and that was a big problem. I mean, Gentry was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage almost more than anybody, if not completely more than anybody in the league. If they fix that offensive line and they just have a baseline of competency, that could work. But I almost want to be like, it's the Raiders. Again, we're talking about a bad organization. We're talking about bad ownership, like Miami, like Cleveland, like Arizona. I'm going to say dude, because I know you're going to say dud.
Absolutely. I'm going to say dud. Have you ever heard of
I love how I'm thinking about it, and I'm giving.
Heard of the Las Vegas Strip?
Yes,
Have you ever heard of Sin City?
I've been there a couple
times. Do you know
times.
that they got everything you want as a young boy with money on them streets?
Yes.
And you think a young nepotized kid gonna come in and be able to control these grown men with lust and desires? Do you absolutely believe that in your mind?
This man said lust and desires.
Do you really think that he's going to be able to get them to focus on football? A young nepotized kid. Absolutely not. Done. Hey, man. Mike McCarthy in Pittsburgh.
Dude, I think it's going to work. For how long, I don't know. He's not going to be there for 18, 20 years like the last three coaches. But I think it's going to work.
I think it's going to work as well. Just knowing the pedigree of Mike McCarthy, I think they're going to have to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have to get a young quarterback. They're going to have to modernize some of the things. He's not going to be able to come in with that old system and think that he's just going to like run my system.
Yeah.
You out of your goddamn mind. But I think that with the people that he has in place, he'll be able to set himself up for success.
And here's the thing. He's going to be given a ton of opportunities because we know the Steelers, they don't fire coaches. They don't make rash decisions, whether you like it or not. So Mike McCarthy is going to be there for at least 5 years before, if there's any lack of success, before anybody starts to say, hey, maybe you guys should make a coaching change. So, yeah, I think it's going to work for sure.
And last but not least, Jesse Minter, Baltimore Ravens.
I like him. And obviously the Ravens are, out of all the teams that had head coaching openings, are the ones that have the Ravens had the most talent, starting with Lamar Jackson. So, yeah, I think that's going to work.
I do as well, because he's a Harbaugh disciple. And remember, reverting back to earlier in this episode, I talked about DeBartolo and how much pressure he would put on people to win. That's what Harbaugh does to his assistants, which is probably why Navarro Bowman walked away, because his expectations and his standard will push you to you're like physically and mentally, emotionally exhausted. And he plays little games with his assistants to constantly keep you on edge psychologically. I'm not bullshitting. And the players.
I know you're not.
And the front office. And he'll say things directly to you that almost hurt your feelings. But you're like, damn, he's right. So if you can, because he was at Michigan with Harbaugh, and then went over to the Chargers with Harbaugh. And if you could taste that much abuse from Harbaugh, you are fucking ready to lead an NFL team full of wild animals from the jungle.
You say if you can pass that test,
man, you ready, man?
If you can come through successfully in that crucible, you can handle.
Man, golly, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if those boys are in the AFC Championship this year, because he's going to take those tactics and he's going to apply them. And you have Lamar Jackson, right? So that defense will be rebuilt. They got some guys back. Kyle Hamilton, a couple guys that were injured on that defensive line. I think Jesse Minter has been set up for success more so than any of these other head coaching candidates.
Without a doubt. No doubt. And I guess in Baltimore, there's nowhere for you to go and have all your desires and your lust.
Oh, yeah, it is. They got Chocolate City. They got the DMV. You know, they got the DMV, Chocolate City, man. Washington, D.C. I remember I used to be up in Club Love and all them things, man. Hey, don't think they don't. They got your fix and your desire, your lust. everywhere you go. And our last question of the day, Rod. The big game is this weekend. Santa Clara. Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots. Who you got?
Man. Seattle, based on the strength of their defense and the strength of that team, that defensive line, getting at the Patriots' offensive line. They stop Ramondre Stevenson. They stop that run game, make it difficult for Drake May. They have Gonzalez at tight end. They've got Stephon Diggs, and we've seen, as good as the Seahawks are, if you have dudes that can beat man coverage on the outside, that secondary is gettable. I don't know if the Patriots have enough with Diggs and Gonzalez and with May at quarterback being harassed by that Seattle defensive line. Very good Patriots defense too, and I think their defensive line, if they're able to handle Seattle's offensive line and Sam Darnold, who is yet to throw an interception in these playoffs, if they can force Darnold to do that, that'll give New England a good shot to win it. I just think Seattle's defense overall is going to be able to attack New England where they're the weakest offensively, and that's on their offensive line. So give me the Seahawks.
I remember one of the problems that we had going into the Super Bowl is we had too much time off. I believe we hung out
desires
too much
being
and partied too much, and actually participating in those actual desires
in New Orleans,
and it affected us. And I say all that to say that the Seattle Seahawks have been awesome this year.
Mm-hmm.
They've had Jackson Smith and Jigba, explosive. Sam Darnold, efficient, not turning the football over. Walker, pretty much doing whatever he wants on the ground. That defense dominate on all levels. But I just fucking hate the Seattle Seahawks. I think
why.
the New England Patriots need to bring it and kick their fucking ass and have them crying like we were in New Orleans. Because I know that feeling. So I'm betting on Mike Vrabel, an Ohio State graduate of the Ohio State University, to really put a game plan together, have his guys juiced up. And then I think, I believe in conspiracies sometimes. I think the New England Patriots are like secretly America's team, right? For everything that's going on in the world and all of this shit. I think that we're getting back to like patriotism. So I'm believing that they're setting it up for the Patriots to have a grand of a night. So I'm going to go with the New England Patriots 31-23. And that was fun, right?
Wow. That big of a score, huh? Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be low scoring. All right.
Man, the boys been out drinking, hanging out, partying, strip clubs. And then remember I told you, when you get in the Super Bowl, it's not like a regular game.
No, you're right.
It feels different. So we'll see the New England Patriots that's focused. They'll jump up 14-0. Remember, think about me when it happens.
Okay.
And that's been fun, Rod. And that'll do it for episode 23 of the Grid Code Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, X, Apple, Spotify, and Instagram. And from myself and Rod Brooks, always remember, it's not just a code, it's a way of life.
Rest in peace, Michael 5000 Watts.